We are the Ministry of the Real Truth, and we were looking at this documentary of Malcom X, Prince of Islam. We have jumped ahead 5 minutes because there's music there and we don't have a license for that music, so we probably get a copyright strike or claim or something like that. So we're starting from the vocalization, Malcolm X's speech, etc. We found that this is in the public domain, public access, Creative Commons and public domain. We went and had a look at those. Basically it says Commons has retired this legal tool and does not recommend that it be applied to works. The person or persons who are associated with work with this document, the dedicator or certifier, hereby either A. certifies that to the best of his knowledge the work of authorship identified is in the public domain of the country from which the work is published. B. or hereby dedicates whatever copyright the dedicator holds in the work of authorship identified below the work to the public domain. A certifier moreover dedicated any copyright interest you may have in the associated work and for those purposes is described as a dedicator below, and so forth. Dedicator recognises that once placed in the public domain, the work may be freely reproduced, distributed, transmitted, used, modified, built upon, or otherwise exploited by anyone for any purpose, commercial or non-commercial, and in any way including by methods that have not yet been invented or conceived. WCO for public domain dedication. This tool is based on United States law and may not be applicable outside the US. For dedicating new works to the public domain, they recommend WCO. So it gives us the right to create a video around it and so forth, put it up on YouTube and not get a copyright strike or claim or said infringement. So we look at the definition of what is Creative Commons and how does it work. A lot of people know that Creative Commons exists, but few actually understand the ins and outs of the organisation behind it. Before you turn to Creative Commons images for your projects, it's important to understand what Creative Commons is, what their licenses mean, how its library differs from public domain and royalty-free images, and the limitations of using Creative Commons. What is Creative Commons? Creative Commons is a non-profit organisation that operates with the goal of making it easier for people to find and build upon creative works like photographs. It's most well known for its copyright licenses, also known as Creative Commons licenses, which allow people to use creative works for free. What is a Creative Commons license? A Creative Commons license allows creators to maintain copyright ownership of the images while allowing others to use those images free of charge, subject to the terms of the relevant Creative Commons license. There are several types of Creative Commons licenses. They are designed to give content creators control over how their creative works are used. What are the different types of Creative Commons license? And they're listed here. Attribution. The attribution double C by license is the license that offers the user the most freedom in usage. If you use an image with this license, you can distribute, modify and build upon an image even commercially. All you need to do is credit the photographer. Attribution share like, attribution no derivatives, attribution non-commercial and so forth. Is Creative Commons free to use? Creative Commons is completely free to use both as a content creator and as someone looking for creative works for their projects. And things to keep in mind before using Creative Commons images in your work. Does the image contain copyrighted material or imagery? Licenses can be confusing. Okay, this is talking about images, etc. But giving you a basic idea of what Creative Commons license is, or Creative Commons and how it works. So we should be able to watch and record and talk about this particular documentary, this video, without incurring a copyright claim, strike, breach or other infringement on YouTube. So whenever you see this, you should be free to do all of that. But the test, the proof is in the pudding. If you make a video like this and it gets a strike or infringement, there's something wrong. Okay, you have to research why. Probably take it down and research why or ask why did they give it to you. Okay, let's have a look at this particular documentary, because we are looking into the Nation of Islam, the religion, etc., to find out what it was all about, or what it's all about.
That's a good religion. In fact, that's that old-time religion. That's the one that Ma and Pa used to talk about. An eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth, and a head for a head, and a life for a life. That's a good religion. And then anybody, no one resents that kind of religion being taught but a wolf who intends to make you his meal. This is the way it is with the white man in America. He's a wolf, and you a sheep.
My earliest recollection is of being snatched awake in the middle of the night because our house was on fire. My mother was a West Indian from Grenada, and my father, a militant Baptist minister and follower of Marcus Garvey, preached race pride and separation from the white man. The Lansing arm of the Ku Klux Klan warned him to stop preaching Garvey's message, but my father was not a frightened Negro, and he kept on. Next thing, he was found with his head bashed in, lying across the streetcar tracks. A trolley had nearly cut him in half. After my father's death, my mother couldn't find work because the Christian people of Lansing wouldn't hire the widow of a crazy nigger. We were so hungry we were dizzy. We stole to stay alive. It was too much for her. They put her in a mental institution, and PAS allowed us kids to reform schools, charities, and homes.
We invested 310 years of slave labor. 310 years, every day of which your and my mother and father worked for nothing. Not 8 hours a day. There was no union in that day. They worked from sun up until sundown. From can't see in the morning until can't see at night. They never had a day off. And on Sunday they were allowed to sit down and sing about when they died, they wouldn't be slaves no more. When they died. This is our investment. This is our contribution, our blood. Not only did we give of our free labor, we gave of our blood. Every time he had a call to arms, we were the first ones in uniform. We died on every battlefield the white man had. We have made a greater sacrifice than anybody who's standing up in America today. We have made a greater contribution and have collected less. Don't let the white man speak for you, and don't let the white man fight for you.
Well, I think to teach a man to hate himself is much more criminal than teaching him to hate someone else. And look at you. Who taught you to hate yourself?
Open to each and every brother, complete inspection. Keep your hands off of that thing there. So you want to see the financial books, huh?
Yeah.
Well, there he is. There he is. You done see them. The meeting is due.
What makes the so-called Negro unable to stand on his own 2 feet? He has no self-confidence. He has no confidence in his own race. Because the white man destroyed your and my past. Destroyed our knowledge of our culture. And by having destroyed it, now we don't know we have any achievement, any accomplishment. And as long as you can be convinced that you never did anything, you can never do anything.
Christian religion has failed. Your leader of that religion has failed. How the government of America has failed. You have no justice coming from no one. Right?
Well, number one, he teaches us that that never was.
Elijah Muhammad for Malcolm was the way out. Elijah Muhammad represented for Malcolm justice. Elijah Muhammad represented for Malcolm strength. And so Malcolm took on the theology of Elijah Muhammad. What was the theology? Number one, Elijah Muhammad taught that God wasn't a spirit, but God was a man named
beneficent and merciful, to whom all praises is due.
Muhammad makes it imperative that a black man who becomes a Muslim works. Get off the welfare. Get out of that compensation line. Be a man. Earn what you need for your own family. Then your family respects you. They are proud to say, that's my father. She's proud to say, that's my husband. Father means you're taking care of those children. Just because you made them, that don't mean you're a father. Anybody can make a baby. But anybody can take care of it. Anybody can go and get a woman. But anybody can't take care of a woman. So husband means you are taking care of your wife. Father means you are taking care of your children. You are accepting the responsibilities of manhood. This is the type of teaching that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us, and this white press has got the nerve to point at him as a hate teacher.
My name is James 52A. My people have been robbed of their names, their language, and their culture by the white man. Therefore, we use this X, which represents the unknown. This X nullifies our slave name. And until Allah or the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gives us our correct name, we will use the X.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that it is time for you and me to stand up for ourselves. It is time for you and me to see for ourselves. It is time for you and me to hear for ourselves. And it is time for you and me to fight for ourselves. We don't need anybody today speaking for us, seeing for us, or fighting for us. We'll fight our own battles with the help of our God. As long as you are addicted to the vices of the white man, when you call on God, God doesn't hear your prayer. And the white man knows it. But the white man also knows that when you clean yourself up, straighten yourself up, and get on God's side, and call on God, God has got to answer your call. Stealing runs rampant in Harlem. Gambling runs rampant in Harlem. All types of evils and vices that tear apart our community run rampant in Harlem. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad doesn't condemn the victim. He goes to work on the victim. He doesn't say that all of you should go to jail because you have fallen victim to the evils that white man has brought into the community. He teaches you and me the religion that God has given to him as the only cure for the evil habits the white man has brought here among us.
I'm the best example of what he can do to reform delinquency and criminal characteristics in any person.
Why are you an example of rehabilitation?
Well, those of you who know my own history know that prior to becoming a Muslim, I was an extreme delinquent. I was into everything that the white police and gangsters left over for the black criminal. I was into numbers, bootleg liquor, hot goods, women, dope. I sold the bodies of black women to white men and white women to black men. I steered white people from downtown to whatever kind of sin they wanted in Harlem. And I'll tell you, my best customers were always the officials, top police, clergymen, businessmen. Despite the fact that my own father was murdered by whites, I was blind enough to mix and socialize with them. I considered them gods and goddesses until Mr. Muhammad opened my eyes and enabled me to see them as a filthy race of devils. We stole to stay alive. I was caught when I was 21 and sentenced to 10 years in prison. That's where I first heard the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and they turned me around. Because the statement, the white man is the devil, just clicked. It explained everything. Hire the widow of a crazy nigger. It struck me like a blinding light. You've got to be realistic, Malcolm. You're a nigger. You're a nigger. You're a nigger. I fell on my knees and pledged to Allah that I would tell the black man the true teachings of Islam, and the white man the truth about his crimes.
I'm not an integrationist. Never could be. I couldn't integrate with my enemy, and I know who my enemy is. We don't want to be around that old pale thing. We don't want to integrate with that old pale thing. We don't want to sleep next to that old pale thing. So we can do without it. There was two kinds of slaves. There was the house Negro and the field Negro. The house Negro, they lived in the house with master. They dressed pretty good. They ate good because they ate his food. What he left. They lived in the attic or the basement, but still they lived near their master. And they loved their master more than the master loved himself.
And these were servants, not slaves, because they were getting fed, clothed, etc.
The house Negro, if the master said, we got a good house here, the house Negro said, yeah, we got a good house here. Whenever the master said we, he said we. That's how you can tell a house Negro. In those days, he was called a house nigger. And that's what we call him today, because we still got some house niggers running around here. On that same plantation, there was the field Negro. The field Negro, those were the...
This is the slave who was used and abused, had no rights, and so forth. So that's the difference between servant and slave, for those out there who just don't get it. Check the definitions, and then they say, oh, the Bible endorses slavery, all this sort of stuff. The book of Exodus, we believe it is, maybe 3:1, says, if you buy or hire or employ a Jewish servant, God was speaking to Jews, Israelites, Hebrews, then here are the rules. If you buy or purchase a prisoner of war, someone that's foreign living within your community or city, and they're a non-Jew, they're Goyim or Gentile, you buy them as a slave, they will be your property, and your children can inherit them. They can be their master or their mistress forever. So there's a great difference there in the biblical servant, bondswoman, bondsmaid, and slave. But they still had rules. There were rules by God of how they would be treated. For if you abused or beat a slave, there was a rule set in place. So there's a difference there between servant, bondswoman, bondsmaid, and slave. Go check out the Aramaic, the Hebrew words, the definitions for those, and you'll see there's a great difference. It's nothing to do with your American or African Negro chattel slavery, where people make videos and they put those images to try and make it stick to the Bible, right? To crush it underfoot, to say, oh, it endorses slavery, oh, what a hateful God, all this sort of stuff, what a merciless God, all this sort of crap, because they're not of God, they have no part in God, they're unspiritual, okay? They have no connection to God. So they're using the mindset of man, okay, to undermine your belief system, your belief in God, the Christ, the Bible text, etc. They have a hidden agenda, or rather they have a hidden motive, because they are anti-theist. They are anti your belief system. Okay? Let's carry on with this video.
Masters. There was always more Negroes in the field than there was Negroes in the house. And he hated his master. I say he hated his master. He was intelligent. That house Negro loved his master. But that field Negro, remember, they were in the majority. And they hated the master. When the house caught on fire, he didn't try and put it out. That field Negro prayed for a wind, for a breeze. When the master got sick, the field Negro prayed that he died. If someone come to the field Negro and said, let's separate, let's run, he didn't say, where are we going? He said, any place is better than here. You got field Negroes in America today. I'm a field Negro. Imagine a Negro
our government. I even heard one say, our astronauts. They won't even let him near the plant. And our astronauts, our Navy. That's a Negro that's out of his mind.
We declare our right on this earth to be a man, to be a human being, to be respected as a human being, to be given the rights of a human being in this society, on this earth, in this day, which we intend to bring into existence by any means necessary.
He teaches us to obey the law, to respect law enforcement officers, as long as these law enforcement officers respect themselves and respect the law that they represent.
When a man is being criminally treated, that some criminal has the right to tell that man what tactics to use to get the criminal off his back. When a criminal starts misusing me, I am going to use whatever necessary to get that criminal off my back. Don't blame a cracker in Georgia for your injustices. The government is responsible for the injustices.
In Los Angeles, California last year, the police shot Ronald Stokes through the heart. He was a Phi Beta Kappa Korean vet.
Many of you thought that we should go right on out then and make war on the white man. You wanted to do it yourself, didn't you? Didn't you? You wanted some action then, didn't you? Because you don't like the idea of white people shooting black people down, do you?
Well, Muslims never forget. You don't kill our brother. We don't never forget. You don't shoot one of us and then grin in our face. You don't shoot one of us and then shake our hands and think we forget it. No, we never forget. We'll never forget. Someone has to pay. Somewhere, somehow, someone has to pay. When a snake bites your children, you don't go and look for the snake that has blood on his jaws. Any old snake will do. Any old snake will do.
An eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth, and a head for a head, and a life for a life. That's a good religion. And then anybody, no one resents that kind of religion being taught but a wolf who intends to make you his meal. We're nonviolent with people who are nonviolent with us, but we are not nonviolent with anyone who is violent with us.
When you have a philosophy or a gospel, I don't care whether it's a religious gospel, a political gospel, an economic gospel, or a social gospel. If it's not going to do something for you and me right here, right now, to hell with that gospel. So we have to have a new approach, a new appraisal. And this new appraisal and new approach has to be in tune with the reality of the conditions that we are in after having been thoroughly brainwashed by this blue-eyed white man. Some of them have brown eyes.
When you live in a poor neighborhood, you're living in an area where you have to have poor schools. When you have poor schools, you have poor teachers. When you have poor teachers, you get a poor education. Poor education, you can only work on a poor-paying job. And that poor-paying job enables you to live again in a poor neighborhood. So it's a very vicious cycle.
Being here in America doesn't make you an American. Being born here in America doesn't make you an American. If birth made you American, you wouldn't need any legislation. You wouldn't need any amendments to the Constitution. No, I'm not an American. I'm one of the 22 million black people who are the victims of Americanism. One of the 22 million black people who are the victims of democracy. Nothing but disguised hypocrisy.
You go to jail, so what? If you're black, you were born in jail. If you're black, you were born in jail. In the North as well as the South. Stop talking about the South. As long as you're south of the Canadian border, you're south. Here he is standing up in front of other people. Uncle Sam, with the blood of your and my mothers and fathers on his hands. With the blood dripping down his jaws like a bloody-jawed wolf. No more days like those.
There's great interest in the fact that you have joined the Muslim religion. How long have you had this interest, Cassius?
Oh, for the past 6 years, I would say, after hearing a lot of teachings on Negro history and who we were before we got here. And 1 and 1 makes 2.
You feel your affiliation with the Muslim religion, being a follower of the Muslim religion, had something to do with your winning the championship?
Well, I would say so. My religion is the only thing that I can give the credit for pulling me through, because 99 out of 100 seem to see no possibility of me winning. Newspaper reporters and everybody all over the world condemned me. They said it would be a mismatch, and couldn't nobody believe it. So my prayers to Allah and faith in my religion, living a clean, righteous life, I have to say that's what pulled me through.
Winner by a TKO in the 7th round, Cassius Clay. I don't have a mark on my face, and I upset Sonny Lisbon, and I just turned 22 years old. I must be the greatest.
Malcom X, I want to talk with you briefly about your affiliation with Cassius. How long have you known him?
About 3 years.
And have you been advising him as far as his religious affiliations are concerned?
Well, no, I don't give advice to anyone. He's my brother and my friend. I express what I know and understand around him, but he has a mind of his own and understanding of his own.
Referring to President Kennedy, I believe you call him a trickster?
He has to be a trickster. Even if he's the president, that doesn't stop him from being a trickster if he's making tricks. Anytime a man running for president tells Negroes what he's going to do for them when he gets in office, and after he gets in office, he has time to do something for everybody else except the people that put him in office. He tricked the people who put him in office. He has the time to take a stand against U.S. Steel, against Castro, against Khrushchev, against Laos and South Vietnam and all these other places all over the world. But when it comes to time to correcting the injustices that are being inflicted against Negroes in this country, Kennedy sits up there like Nero. He's filming while Birmingham is burning.
November 22nd, something happened. John F. Kennedy, the President of the United States of America, was assassinated. A reporter from the New York Times raised the question, Mr. X, what about the death of John F. Kennedy? And you know something, brothers and sisters? Malcolm answered the same way he had been answering for years. That is the climate of hate. It is the direction that America is going that caused the death of the president. He said chickens coming home to roost.
While the nation and the world mourn the death of President John F. Kennedy, black Muslim extremist Malcom X, speaking today in Manhattan Center in New York City, called the president's assassination a case of chickens coming home to roost.
This statement is from Messenger Elijah Muhammad, the leader of the Muslims of America. Minister el-Shabazz, addressing a public meeting at Manhattan Center in New York City on Sunday, December the 3rd, did not speak for the Muslims when he made comments on the death of the president, John F. Kennedy. He was speaking for himself and not Muslims in general. And Minister Malcolm has been suspended from public speaking for the time being.
I've been silent for the past 90 days because of some statements I made concerning the President of the United States, which were distorted. They were distorted. And, yes.
What did you say, Malcolm?
Well, I said the same thing that everybody says, that his assassination was the result of the climate of hate. Only I said the chickens came home to roost, and which means the same thing.
You did not say that you were glad the president was killed.
No, that's what the press said. What will I look like saying that I'm glad the president was killed?
Malcolm, this is your first public statement in that 90-day period, is it not?
First time I opened up my mouth in 90 days. That's why I'm talking so fast and so hearty.
You feel, however, that we're making progress in this country and worldwide?
No. I will never say that progress is being made. If you stick a knife in my back 9 inches and pull it out 6 inches, there's no progress. You pull it all the way out, that's not progress. The progress is healing the wound that the blow made. They won't even admit the knife is there.
I did receive word from him that the 90-day suspension that I was under was not to be lifted, that it would remain indefinite. And as
when did this take place?
This past week. And so I just reached the conclusion that I frankly didn't think that I would ever be an active member of the Nation of Islam anymore.
March 8th, 1964, Malcolm officially broke with the Nation of Islam. He went to his sister, Ella. I think she was living in Boston at the time. He said, "You have to help me. I have to make the pilgrimage to Mecca." She was saving money. And she said, "Don't worry, Malcolm. I was saving money to go for pilgrimage. I'll give it to you and let you go."
Malcolm, have your experiences with white-skinned Muslims in Africa and the Middle East made you feel that relations between Negroes and whites who are not Muslims is any more possible?
When I was on the pilgrimage, I had close contact with Muslims whose skin would in America be classified as white, and with Muslims who themselves would be classified as white in America. But these particular Muslims didn't call themselves white. They looked upon themselves as human beings, as part of the human family, and therefore they looked upon all other segments of the human family as part of that same family. Now, they had a different look or a different air or a different attitude than that which is reflected in the attitude of the man in America who calls himself white. So I said that if Islam had done that for them, perhaps if the white man in America would study Islam, perhaps it could do the same thing for him.
At Jeddah in Saudi Arabia on the way to Mecca, I remember the ancient words of Allah. Proclaim the pilgrimage among men. It will come on foot and upon lean camel. It will come from every deep ravine. From Mecca, the holy city of Islam, I wrote to friends in America, "Never have I witnessed such sincere hospitality and true brotherhood as is practiced here in this ancient holy land, the home of Abraham, Muhammad, and all the other prophets of the Holy Scriptures." You may be shocked at these words coming from me, but what I have seen has forced me to rearrange much of my thought patterns previously held, to toss aside some of my previous conclusions. For during the past 11 days, I've eaten from the same plate, drunk from the same glass, slept on the same rug, and prayed to the same God, with fellow Muslims whose eyes were the bluest of blue, whose hair was the blondest of blonde, and whose skin was the whitest of white. We are truly the same because their belief in one God has removed the white from their minds, the white from their behavior, and the white from their attitudes. Wearing the ihram garb of a pilgrim, I made the 7 circuits around the Kaaba. I drank from the sacred well of Zemzem. I ran between the hills of Safa and Marwa. I stood on Mount Ararat and with my brothers proclaimed, "I come, O Lord, I come. God is great. Lead us, O Lord, in peace." And for the first time in my 39 years on this earth, I stood before the Creator of all and felt like a complete human being. Sincerely, el-Hajj, Malik, el-Shabazz, Malcom X.
He went all over the world. He met white Muslims who helped him. He met black Muslims and yellow Muslims and Muslims from China and Russia, from all over the world. He recognized man had nothing to do with his skin color, but it had everything to do with what's on the inside of you. And Malcolm then, for the first time, became a real Muslim. He had books, and he began to read. He wanted to know what Islam was all about, because he knew then that Elijah Muhammad was a fake and a fraud.
I think a lot of people confused by the new Arabic name, el-Hajj, Malik, el-Shabazz?
I've always had the name on my passport, Malik el-Shabazz. I only used it in the Muslim world. Well, Hajj is a title that is given to any Muslim who makes the pilgrimage to Mecca during the official Hajj season.
Well, will you now use Shabazz and drop X?
I'll probably continue to use Malcom X and I'll probably use it as long as the situation that produced it exists.
You don't feel that Shabazz takes the place of X?
My going to Mecca and going into the Muslim world, into the African world, and being recognized and accepted as a Muslim and as a brother may solve the problem for me personally. But I personally feel that my personal problem is never solved as long as the problem is not solved for all of our people in this country. So I remain Malcolm X as long as there is a need to protest and struggle and fight against the injustices that our people are involved in this country.
Are you prepared to go into the United Nations at this point and ask that charges be brought against the United States for its treatment of American Negroes?
Oh, yes. Please. The audience will have to be quiet. Yes, as I pointed out when I was during my traveling, that African nations and Asian nations and Latin American nations look very hypocritical when they stand up in the United Nations condemning the racist practices of South Africa and that which is practiced by Portugal and Angola, and saying nothing in the UN about the racist practices that are manifest every day against Negroes in this society. Even in South Africa, those Africans aren't faced with bayonets and aren't faced with police dogs. I would be not a man. If I was in a position to bring it in front of the United Nations and didn't do so, I wouldn't be a man.
Malcolm, do you intend to lead the charge in the United Nations?
Well, I find that to say you're going to lead something creates a lot of hostility, division, jealousy, and envy. I hope to work with any group of leaders or any group of organizations to do whatever is necessary to see that this problem is brought before the United Nations.
Have you had any commitments from any nations in Africa to support your move?
I would rather not say at this time. But one thing I found in my travels, all of them look upon us as their long-lost brother.
You realize the implication is that you have had such commitments when you say...
This is your interpretation of what I said. One thing that I found in all of my travels was that all of the Africans, not only the Africans, but the Asians and the Muslims, look upon us as their long-lost brothers. And America had actually tricked many of them into a hands-off policy by giving them the impression that she was honestly trying to do something to solve the problem. My argument over there was designed to prove that it is impossible for the United States government to solve the race problem. It's impossible.
Malcolm, on your trip abroad, you said you sensed a feeling of great brotherhood, and that conceivably you would be working toward integration in this country now. At least this is what you're reported to have said. Any comment on it?
I don't think that I ever mentioned anything about working toward integration. They haven't even got integration right here in New York City. You have worse integration problems in the North than they have in the South. So if it doesn't work if you can't bring about integration in New York City as international, cosmopolitan, up-to-date as it's supposed to be, you'll never get integration anywhere else in the country.
Are you prepared to work with some of the leaders of the other civil rights organizations?
Certainly. We will work with any groups, organizations, or leaders in any way, as long as it's genuinely designed to get results.
Does your new beard have any religious significance?
No, not particularly, but I do think that you find black people in America, as they strive to throw off the shackles of mental colonialism, will also probably reflect an effort to throw off the shackles of cultural colonialism. And they may begin to reflect desires of their own, with standards of their own.
Malcolm, a more controversial remarks was a call for black people to get rifles and form rifle clubs sometime back. Do you still favor that for self-defense?
I don't see why that should be controversial. I think that if white people found themselves the victim of the same kind of brutality that black people in this country face, and they saw that the government was either unwilling or unable to protect them, that the intelligence on the part of the whites would make them get some rifles and shotguns and protect themselves. Now, Negroes are developing some kind of intellectual maturity too, and they can see that by having waited upon the government to protect them has been a weight that has been in vain. So any of them who live in areas where the government is not able to do its job, then we do have to get together and do a job of protecting ourselves. No Negro leaders have fought for civil rights.
What do you mean
They
by
have
fought?
begged for civil rights. They have begged the white man for civil rights. They have begged the white man for freedom. And anytime you beg another man to set you free, you'll never be free. Freedom is something that you have to do for yourselves. And until the American Negro lets the white man know that we are really, really ready and willing to pay the price that is necessary for freedom, our people will always be walking around here second-class citizens, or what you call 20th century slaves.
What price are you talking about, sir?
The price of freedom is death.
The white man can never win another war on the ground. His days of war victory, his days of background victory are over. Can I prove it? Yes. Take all the action that's going on this earth right now that he's involved in. Tell me where he's winning. Nowhere.
الله يا أعداء الله والله لو صعدتوا للسماء لرفعنا الله وراءكم ونقول لكم والله إنه قد جاءكم رجال يعشقون الموت كما تعشقون الحياة.
زندباد أمير المؤمنين زندباد أسامة بن لادن.
Put some guerrilla action on it. And a white man can't fight a guerrilla warfare. Guerrilla action takes heart, takes nerve, and he doesn't have that. He's brave when he's got tanks. He's brave when he's got planes. He's brave when he's got bombs. He's brave when he got a whole lot of company along with him. But you take that little man from Africa and Asia, turn him loose in the woods with a blade. And when the sun comes down, goes down, and it's dark, it's even Steven. It takes heart to be a guerrilla warrior. A guerrilla is on his own. All you have is a rifle, some sneakers, and a bottle of rice. And that's all you need. And a lot of heart. I just want to give you a little briefing on guerrilla warfare because before you know it,
I hope I haven't put anybody on the spot. I'm not intending to try and stir you up and make you do something that you wouldn't have done anyway. I pray that God will bless you in everything that you do. I pray that you will grow intellectually so that you can understand the problems of the world and where you fit into in that world picture.